December is the beginning of the national selection season, where hundreds of artists from around Europe and beyond will be competing for the chance to represent their country at the Eurovision Song Contest in May. Yep, May, which probably feels like an eternity from now, considering that social distancing is still going on and that we're waiting on vaccine distribution. But you might not have known that for a lot of people, the excitement behind Eurovision starts right now. And that's not just because we're getting announcements for the coming year, but it's also because we're getting our first taste of the songs. For the most dedicated fans, these shows are essential viewing, mostly because when the thing you love comes once a year, you'll take any small dose of it as soon as possible, but also because they're entertaining, and they're a great way to be exposed to music and artists that you wouldn't otherwise hear. With each program, you get a window into the pop culture scene of every country, and even as just a snapshot of the music scene, it offers you an idea of what each country's tastes are. Some of the largest and longest running shows are major events that attract the country's top artists. Others are wide open fields with live televised auditions where literally anything goes. And of course, by the end of it, you get to hear the song that wins their selection, along with a taste of how it may be performed later at Eurovision. But to follow all of it in real time is impossible. A lot of these shows run at the same time on a Saturday night and they go for weeks. Even we at Eurovoxx have a hard time keeping up with it all. But it's worth checking out whether you live for those wacky, outlandish Eurovision acts, or if you're looking for something completely different. You might be surprised at the variety that these shows bring. So, if you've never dived into the Eurovision preseason, here's a little rundown of what's on offer from each country. Italy's Sanremo Music Festival is a prestigious black tie gala with a live orchestra, and is also credited for being the inspiration behind Eurovision in the 1950s. The event spans 5 evenings of new and classical Italian music from Italy's top composers and songwriters. As the most watched music event in the country, it has tremendous significance to Italian culture. Folks are quick to mention that it differs from other events in the sense that it's not a true national selection. Instead, the artist that wins Sanremo has first refusal, rather than being automatically chosen to go to Eurovision. Although, more often than not, they accept. It also tends to go on for hours into the early morning, so you'd be forgiven for not watching until the end. Nonetheless, whether you check it out or not, you should at least give the music a listen, as it is, objectively speaking, some of the best. Italy is frequently a favorite to win, and they often finish in the top 10 at Eurovision. If pop music is what gives you life, then you can't miss Sweden's Melodifestivalen. It is easily one of the biggest and most competitive selections in Europe. The Swedish broadcaster often sees over 2,500 submissions per year, and barely 1% of those entries actually make it to the stage. Of course, Sweden has a bit of a legacy, not just in Eurovision, but in pop music around the world, so you can expect top-shelf production and slick staging. Most of what makes it to the semi-finals resembles the kind of music you would hear on the radio, but that isn't to say they don't know how to have a little fun too. Neighboring Norway does their selection through Melodi Grand Prix, which has been a long-time favorite among Eurovision fans. Some people prefer it to the highly competitive Melfest, as it tends to feel a little bit more laid back and fun. You'll still get a fair amount of pop music, but it's mixed in with a much more eclectic range of musical styles and a somewhat higher tolerance for camp. Norway's love of Eurovision really shines through, and it's something that's easy for all fans to see. Lithuania's selection runs alongside Norway's and tends to see an even larger selection of artists take the stage. Musically, they tend to be highly unpredictable. Yes, as with other countries, you get your bangers, you get your power ballads, and you even get some avant-garde entries, but only in Lithuania do you get this. I'm a Lithuanian basketball player. Come on, raise your hands and clap with me. To their credit, the Outside the Box musical roster makes their show something of its own. Last year's winners, The Roop, were tipped as one of the favorites to win Eurovision 2020. That, of course, didn't happen, but they are set to try again for 2021. If we're talking outside the box, we'd be remiss not to mention Belarus. They're one of the few to broadcast live auditions where you see some of the most bizarre entries of all.
Potato, potato, acapulco, potato, potato, acapulco. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. Where is 4? Yeah! We want a piece, we want a piece.
Obviously, a number of these are just taking the piss, but sometimes it's not so easy to tell which ones are and which ones aren't. Only a handful of the songs from the auditions make it to the actual final, which is a fully produced TV program, and those tend to be more serious, but they aren't without a sense of character. Festivali in Estonia is often one of the first to release their songs, even though they don't choose until late February. The selection is usually not as wacky as Lithuania's or Belarus's can be, but they tend to offer genres that you wouldn't see in some of the larger, more competitive contests. From punk rock to opera, country to synth pop, soul to EDM, the selection covers a lot of ground, with a larger share of songs that feel more stripped back than the typical Eurovision entry. But the most adventurous selection in my view would be Vidbir in Ukraine. They bring the variety that's found in shows like Festivali with a strong emphasis on featuring contemporary music styles and independent artists. Ukraine is also one of the few countries that has always qualified for the Eurovision Grand Final, although there have been some mishaps.
Crimea is Ukraine?
Ukraine, of course.
Okay.
Australia has also never missed a final. After a string of internal selections, Australia Decides was launched in 2019 to get the public involved in choosing its song and artist. The Aussies strive to showcase a mix of big voices from the pop world with up-and-coming indie artists. And although they are the newest country to take the stage, they've made it very clear that they know how Eurovision works. Over in the Balkans, Albania's Festivali Kenges holds its selection in mid to late December, which fans have lovingly dubbed Thickmas. Although Albania has only been participating since 2004, the show has actually been running for almost 60 years. As such, the music tends to be deeply rooted in Albanian culture, and year after year, they prove that Albania is home to some of the most technically skilled singers on the continent. Portugal's Festival da Canção is perhaps the selection that least fits the typical Eurovision stereotypes. Like Sanremo, there's a big emphasis on composition, and as a result, you get a wide variety of music that often has a timeless quality. It's definitely not as grandiose as some of the bigger selections, but when that's when so many other countries are going for, it's wonderful to see Portugal coming in doing their own thing. It doesn't always work for them at Eurovision, but it did earn them their first win in 2017, one of the biggest in history. And it doesn't stop there. Iceland has brought us some true gems in the last few years, including this viral hit. Finland and Czechia go for quality over quantity, which is much appreciated. Serbia and Croatia bring us the sounds of the Balkans. Armenia and Slovenia have their share of big voices and personalities. Denmark enjoys being Scandinavia's biggest wildcard. I'd also say the same for Latvia and the Baltic nations. Romania would probably be the wildcard of the Balkans. And their neighbors Moldova keep it quirky, giving us the odd meme from time to time. And even some of the big five, like France, Spain, Germany, and the UK, turn to the public to choose their song on occasion. As you can see, there's lots going on. It really doesn't take long before we have our full list of songs, which may include some of your favorites. And it also may not. Anyone who's followed the Eurovision preseason knows that it's very easy to get swept up in the excitement around an entry, only for it not to be selected in the end. And yeah, sometimes that sucks. So, to protect your sanity and dignity, here are some pro tips for heading into the new national selection season. Number 1, I really can't stress enough. Beware of hype. No matter how loved a song is, how famous the people behind it are, or how many views and plays it has, any song can flop. Yet this is easily forgotten every year. Our first impressions of a song are usually a fully produced studio recording, so you have to remember that it may not sound like that live. Some performers just aren't able to reproduce what they did in the studio on stage. Other times, a perfectly good song is hurt by some bad choices like staging or wardrobe. And sometimes their performance is good enough, but they're just outdone by someone else. But more often, the blame is put on the professional juries who, just like in Eurovision, have a say in which song wins, and their opinions don't always match the public's. Juries in Eurovision are always going to be controversial, so I don't think there's ever going to be a complete change in that attitude. But for your own sake, just remember that it's not the jury's job to vote in line with the public. What they're supposed to be doing is recognizing the qualities that songs have that the public wouldn't necessarily see for themselves. It doesn't always work out that way. But when it does, it gives songs the opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise had. Do you know what song we would have missed out on if it weren't for a jury? This one. The second tip I'd give you is, believe it or not, there's more to it than competition. As a song contest, there's a lot of emphasis on the final results. For some people, that's all that matters, but it's often a different story for the artists themselves. Many of them are just happy to be there and feel lucky enough to have had the chance to play their music for the country, even if it means not being selected in the end. But the nature of these selections means that artists will be facing a ton of criticism. With the emphasis on competition, especially with Eurovision as the next step, it can lead to people taking sides, thinking that certain artists deserve the ticket more than others. I mean, it's natural for people to want to get behind an artist and see them succeed, maybe even carry the flag, but I think that some people think that they're doing an artist a favor by putting down other artists, when in reality, that doesn't do anyone any good. A much more effective way of supporting an artist is to stream their music, buy their merch, find out where they're performing live. They'll prefer that a lot more. My last piece of advice, which I really think is key to getting the most out of the national selection experience, is to have an open mind. Those of us who are invested in these selections because of Eurovision might be looking for what qualities these songs have to give them the best chances. And while there's nothing wrong with that, we should also recognize that it's not what defines good music. It's easy to write off a song as filler, or too slow, or too out there, or any other quality that doesn't feel Eurovision-y. But if the last few years have proven anything, it's that what defines a Eurovision song is changing. The criteria for success is less defined than it used to be, and that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes the music maintains the larger-than-life spirit that the show is known for, and other times it subverts that entirely. Learning to let go of that idea opens up the possibilities for any artist to have a chance at success. I should mention that if you're watching this leading up to Eurovision 2021, a handful of these shows won't actually happen. And that's because some broadcasters have decided to invite back their 2020 artists so that they don't have to earn their ticket to Rotterdam again. And some other broadcasters will be putting on replacement shows where it's one artist and multiple songs, and they'll have the public vote on which song goes to the contest. The rest are going ahead as planned, and it will still be a pretty busy season with all of that going on, plus the internally selected songs that get revealed around the same time. So if you want to follow the action and join in the discussion on who can be representing what country in 2021, you'll definitely want to subscribe to Eurovoxx. We'll be following it all as it happens, with live discussions, reactions, selection highlights, and much, much more. We've also got our brand new website, Eurovoxx.tv, where you can follow all things Eurovision, and you can keep updated with all of our activities on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I know I didn't mention every selection. Some of them come and go and change formats, so it's hard to get them all in. But for those of you who do follow them, let us know in the comments which one is your favorite and what would you say to someone to get them to watch as well. We'd love to know what you guys think. Stay tuned for lots more videos coming your way, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.